Welcome to Story 516, a podcast where we sit down with Christians and talk about how God is showing up in the world today. I am joined today by a friend of mine, Seth.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
It is good to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we met, way back in the day, I think, in
Long
theater.
time ago. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then since then, neither of us are really have anything to do with theater anymore.
No, but we've just kind of always had that, like, we see each other around
Yeah.
every couple of months.
Stayed in the same
Yep.
city.
Yep, very much so. I met you, I was in 6th grade. I think I was like 11, 12 years old.
Gosh.
Probably about that.
I was probably
I'd
a
say.
few years older.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing junior high,
Sure.
maybe early high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while.
Yes.
I was just curious, could you just tell a little bit, like, if someone were to ask for your bio?
Sure. I love it. Well, my name is Seth Bloom. Born and raised in Fargo, North Dakota, so I'm very much local. Like you said, man, music has been kind of my MO. I think everything I've done has something to do with music. You know, I have not really been able to do it like full time, but I've always tried to find ways to be able to like have time for music and work to support, you know, my art and my drive to do it. I started as a percussionist, started playing drums when I was like 8, 9 years old. I've been playing for well over, 20 years now as a drummer, which is crazy to think about. My other thing I do, I play guitar and sing, songwriter as well. And worship music is really kind of the heart of what I love to do, man. I mean, music is, to me, if I have any spare time, if I'm not playing, Xbox or PlayStation or
Right.
something along those lines, you can usually find me camped out in my basement trying to get better at electric guitar, which is not as easy as you'd think, or writing songs or reading, but very much so, man. I, local Midwestern guy, just kind of settled down, wife, kids, and working full time to support playing music at church and as much as I can on my own from time to time. Played in a couple of bands in the past. Nothing super recent other than worship music, but a little stint as a little touring drummer for a while, kind of just around the local Midwest, which was pretty fun, with a couple of my old you could say like hardcore bands or
Nice.
popcore, whatever the scene bands. I did that for a while, and that was really fun. But life moves on.
Yeah.
As it does.
Props to sticking with trying to better yourself at an instrument.
Yeah, dude, it's just fun to me.
Yeah.
Not always. It's not fun when, you're like, man, why can't I learn this lick? I've been working on this for like 2 weeks, and it's like, maybe I should seek instruction.
Hey, I did a few years of piano back in like junior high school, and then
Dude.
since then it's like nothing.
My wife, Kaya, she's a piano player, and I wish I could sight read music like she can. I cannot, to save my life. So I'm so envious of those that can. So I feel that, man. It's a tough one.
No, I'm thankful I went through it. Like being able to say I can read music. I mean, at this point, it's like probably heavy quotations around that phrase.
Sure, fair enough.
But even growing up, when I was in the thick of it, it was still, if I didn't know the tune, if I wasn't super familiar with the song that I was playing, I was a pretty lost cause.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah.
You said you started learning percussion at a pretty young age.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned also more recently, worship has been a big part of the music journey of your life.
Yeah.
Was there a transition period, or was there a period that it went from just like learning instruments and bettering yourself at a skill to becoming something more?
So I would say, yes, basically. And that I started playing drums, like drum set, really taking it more seriously, like middle school, I guess junior high for us, but middle school for the younger kids, 7th, 8th grade. And I really started playing trap set for like the youth band at my church. And I did that for a number of years. And then I went to youth group at Salem Central. Kent Hanstead was our youth pastor. We had a wonderful man, Royce, who headed up the youth group band. And he had asked me about, hey, how'd you feel about learning acoustic guitar? Because we need like someone to lead next year. We don't have anyone, like the seniors are graduating. They were the ones that were doing like the youth band and stuff. We need someone to kind of take it up. How'd you feel about doing that? And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I kind of told my parents, I was like, hey, I kind of want to learn to play guitar. So my stepdad, who plays every instrument on the planet, and he is amazing at all of them, was like, all right, here's a chord book, here's an acoustic, go nuts, basically. And so I really cut my teeth on an acoustic guitar learning like worship songs and playing in the youth band. So that was really my step into worship leading and singing, even taking that, learning that as like, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. That really kind of became the foundation of like why I started taking in music and learning instruments more seriously, because I had a love for God and a love for music. I've always had like a deep love for music, and so for me, just they clicked so naturally, and it really kind of became like an amazing outlet for my faith, but also connecting other people like with God through music, being able to kind of step back and lead them, in that sense. And it's been awesome, man. I've been doing it several years now since then. From 2018 to 2020, I attended 10,000 Fathers and Mothers School of Worship Ministry out of Atlanta, Georgia. I think they moved to Colorado Springs, but that was a wonderful experience too.
Cool.
And that was that really kind of pushed me to step up my game too. You meet all these amazing people from all over the country that have been doing it for a number of years. That too, in the last couple of years, has really been like, oh man, like I should maybe take this a little more seriously. So, but it's been great, man. That's just always been a part of my musical journey. I've pretty much always been playing on a worship team, or filling in as needed at other churches and stuff. It's just it's part of what I love to do, and what I think God has really laid on my heart is to use this musical ability He's given me to connect people with Him. So.
Nice. Did you end up leading any college bands?
I did when I went to MSUM. I did about 2.5 years there, and I got really involved with Chi Alpha, and so I did drum for them for a good couple of years. But I didn't do much leading with them, more so drumming.
Cool.
Yeah, but that was pretty fun.
So that's interesting, kind of looking at going from high, like even younger than high school or high school age to college, to taking some time to lead at churches.
Yeah.
So you've kind of run the whole gambit there.
It has been, man. It's been a transition. If I'm going to go through it all, I mean, we started high school youth band into college, and that was when high school, college, I was playing in the youth bands, but then I was also in my other bands too, with secular music, the pop punk hardcore scene. And then kind of that post college, I met my wife around that time, and I met her playing on the worship team at Ignite Church is how we met. And she was playing piano, and I just started playing drums because I needed a drummer. My friend Tim Jaycox. I don't know if you know Tim Jaycox.
I don't.
You don't? Okay. He's another super cool like musician, Christian, very homeschooled as well. So I know sometimes the circles can kind of connect.
Right.
But he got me going there, and I've pretty much since then just been playing in worship teams where God has led us over the last, and that was like 2014. So we're now 9 years later, and I'm still doing it. And it's been great. You learn a lot. For sure, successes and failures over 10 years in volunteer ministry, but it helps you grow as a character. It helps your character grow, I should say, and with your musicianship as well over time. But it's interesting, looking back at that journey, and going, man, I have been doing it for a long time. It seems like it to me, at least.
Right.
But.
More recently, I had the opportunity to hear you play a set of. I know you did some original music at the church I go to for kind of like almost like an open mic type night. What was the transition like, or when did it happen from going from leading worship music, which I'm guessing is mostly pre-written stuff you get from other artists, to writing your own music?
Yeah. Dude, for sure. You yourself, you're a writer. I mean, you love to write. I mean, I came over here and you were like, "Yeah, I'm working. I got this book
Yeah.
for this writers conference," and I'm like, "That's amazing." I love to write. I've always felt I'm too ADHD to write a story, as much as I'd love to write a book. But songs are fine because they're short, And I really fell in love with songwriting in high school. I did a summer program through Trollwood Performing Arts School. They did a course on songwriting, that really opened my eyes to the whole process. We got to work with a man named Terry Rudd. I don't remember how you say his last name. He's amazing. Great songwriter, great songwriting teacher. And we got to, a bunch of high school kids working with this guy who's, trying to wrangle you and teach how to write songs. But it was great. We had like a month to write a song, and then we got to go into a studio and record it in town, which was like one of the coolest experiences of my life. And I've had the opportunity to record in many studios over the years, but that whole process really helped me fall in love with songwriting. That was also the time when the movie Once came out.
Okay, yeah.
Which that whole movie is about a singer-songwriter, and I fell in love with his guitar playing, with his voice, and with his songwriting. He was a storyteller, Glenn Hansard, and his vocals are so powerful. He uses, not just his words, but like the way he sings, you can really get the passion in there. And that really kind of sparked my starting in songwriting. Kind of around that time, I'm growing up, I'm doing youth music at the same time. I'm doing the songwriting camp. I just found this amazing soundtrack, this singer-songwriter that just really opened my eyes, and I felt like I connected with a lot. And that kind of got me in that process of songwriting. And at first I wrote some pretty bad songs as you're getting used to it. But I by no means would I say I'm an amazing songwriter. But over the years, you pick up tricks and you get better, you push for it, and kind of just that lining up with my love of God and my love for Christ, coinciding with my love for writing songs and songwriting. They kind of go hand in hand. I will say, writing a worship song, it's very much like a different mindset than if I'm writing something pop punk or folk, which is more, I kind of use that as a tool to like write out, frustrations or joys or sadness. It's a great way for me to just kind of process, if I'm going through something great or sad. In worship music, you can do the same thing, but it's not so much focused on you, as it is, focused on glorifying, God and bringing him glory. And that was probably the most difficult, and still is. I'd still say I'm a little newer to writing worship songs. 10,000 Fathers, the school I had mentioned that I went to, they actually, one of the 6-month tracks I did with them was on songwriting, like worship songwriting. And that was great. I got to work with and meet some of the most prolific modern day like songwriters out there in like the Christian market, which is pretty awesome.
Has going through all that made you view the Psalms in the Bible differently?
Ooh. That's a great question, man. That's good. I haven't really thought about that, but I will say this. Short answer, yes. As reading them as David, who, I don't know if he wrote all the Psalms, but he wrote a lot of them. I think maybe somewhere, they're not really sure.
Yeah.
But he is definitely someone that his heart is on his sleeve. There are so many, aside from, there are some that just, they're so heart-wrenching. And some he's just angry. You can really just, it comes across, and think that they're poems, but they're songs too. That's inspiring. He really put it out there. He doesn't like mince words, and he's very poetic too. He's a beautiful, beautiful writer. The Psalms are just, any translation, they're awesome. But I definitely have more of an appreciation for them. I think, looking at them now and think, he's just, how many songwriters take inspiration from the Psalms, today.
Right.
Modern day worship songs have almost word for word scripture in them, which is perfect. That's great. I don't know that I'll ever write anything as beautiful as the Psalm. Probably not. I don't think I ever will. But there's definitely a deeper respect for them as he's an artist. He's, I think, maybe the biggest artist in the Bible in terms of that.
Yeah, it made me think, like when you were mentioning some of your songs you've written almost as processing through a certain emotion, and then talking about how worship songs have been more difficult to write. I was like, that's interesting. That it got me thinking of the Psalms, where it's like, it seems like David does a lot of both of those, where you have some more worshipful psalms,
I suppose, and then some that
are just like break the teeth of my enemies, or something like that.
Yeah, strike him on the jaw, know, and
it's like, geez, okay,
amazing, like, man, he gets at it.
I mean, when you first came over tonight, even before we started recording, we talked a lot about stories and storytelling.
Yeah.
And I know you brought this up earlier, that songwriting can be like storytelling for you.
Yeah.
Have you seen the stories contained within different songs, either through your own writing of one or an experience or witnessing it, that have just been really impactful?
I'd say music saved my life, but Jesus saved my soul. Is what I would say. There have been so many songs that they just get me through a tough time. Great example of this. When it comes to like top 40 Christian radio, I have a love-hate relationship, especially with like Casting Crowns, and I mean, they have some great stuff. Don't get me wrong. But Mercy Me is they have a lot of songs out there.
Yep.
There's a song they put out within the last couple of years called Even If You Don't. The song really resonated with Kai and I when it came out. Came out right as when our son Henry, when he was 2.5, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which of the two types of diabetes, it's insulin dependent. There's no cure for it. His pancreas attacks his own insulin cells, and so he can't regulate his own blood sugar. And it's a lot of work, to really manage that for him. We do it gladly because he's our kid and we love him, so we're not gonna not. We found out, listen to that song, that the lead singer of Mercy Me, his son is type 1 diabetic, and he actually wrote that song about that, which was just incredible. There's a video we found online where they're doing a live performance, and he just kind of stops and he goes, "You guys, I just got to open up." He's like, "We had a tough day today with my son's diabetes, and if you have it, if you don't know about it, it can be really tough to manage. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of mental energy, and it's just tough, and it can really break your spirit. And we've prayed and prayed for God to take this away from our son, but he hasn't." And the song is just that cry, I know you're tired, I know you're weary, I know you're able, God, to heal my son, but even if you don't, my hope is you alone, is kind of the message of that song. And word for word what we're going through, still today. I mean, it's been over 3 years since his diagnosis, but there are days when it's a tough day, or we've got up 3 times last night to give Henry sugar because his blood sugar's going low, and we're tired. He's tired. And what other choice do you have but to go on? But to have, someone write their story down in a song like that, you just connect with.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that, there are songs that are just about life is good and it's going great. And, if you're in a kind of a crappy place or a bad mindset, you need something happy to pull you out of that. And that's when those songs can come out. There are so many amazing storytellers in music. And a lot of that, I would say, almost comes from a country background. I'm not talking like the modern day country. I mean, I'm talking like 80s, 90s country, the good country. If you're going to call any country good, I mean, music wise, like, 80s and 90s, I think is really where it's at. That was when the storytelling was, I think, kind of peak. And I mean, Garth Brooks, amazing storyteller with his songwriting, Standing Outside the Fire, Thunder Rolls, just some really, really good stuff. So in that aspect of it, I think, storytelling, I have related to it in the songs, and it's a lot of what's got me through. And I think the music I've connected with the most of my life has been stuff that they get at the real stuff. I it's going to sound hip. I don't listen to a ton of the top 40 stuff. It's cool. It's fun. It's boppy. And it's great, and it's sometimes it's nice to listen to that. It's fairly mindless, and it's just groovy and fun. But I want something a little deeper, I want lyrics that tell a story or convey an emotion, And sometimes that's it. Is you're feeling something, you need to feel it out. That's kind of why I also like to listen to hardcore screamo music.
Yeah.
Because I have those, since I was, you have those days where it's like, man, I just need to drive my car and I can't punch a hole in the wall.
Right.
I need to manage my anger, but I can listen to music that makes me feel like it. You know?
I mean, sometimes you look at little kids who are having just complete mental breakdown in the middle of a store and be like,
yeah.
I wish I could do that sometimes.
Oh, I feel I'm like I feel you, Timmy. I know how you're feeling. I want that dinosaur toy too.
What's cool about kind of what you mentioned, if you read a novel or watch a movie, the creator, the storyteller of those things had that story they wanted to convey a theme or an emotion. But how much more accessible are songs? A book might take you a number of hours to get through a movie, 2.5 hours.
Sure.
Song, 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
That's really cool that the accessibility of that type of storytelling, and then just how, like you were saying with the Mercy Me example, how God speaks through someone else's story directly into your story.
He's good about that, isn't he? He does that a lot, which is great. I think you can use movies as like an escape, and same for books and same for music. I firmly believe you can walk out of a movie, and be like, that was amazing. I feel different after watching it. And I think the same thing can be said for listening to a song. They can change you and take something away from it. And in that, having that song, you're right. It's easier to listen to a 3.5 minute song versus sit through a 90-minute plus movie.
And it's incredible how quickly they can tap into certain emotions.
Yeah.
Because there are some songs that's like, I connect with this because I was feeling that same despair. With music, it can just like be a light switch, just flipping on to it. Or I don't know, it's a weird comparison, but almost like a smell, where a smell can just take you back to a specific moment in time. I think music is very similar in that regard.
Well said, man. That's really well said, actually. That's awesome. I like that a lot. I think of it too, and visually it's nice to like watch something and take it in, right? But I think remember like being a kid and your parents read you a story, and it's, you have to think of it in your head. It's not written like in front of you visually to listen to it and process it in your mind. Kind of same thing with the song. Someone's telling you a story versus showing you a story. They're telling it to you. And having that music, to almost underscore the lyrics in a sense. Yeah, melody is of course has something to do with it too, but the stories, man. I think having that, maybe that's part of it.
I mean, for myself, I've been personally impacted by both secular and Christian music in a spiritual way.
Yeah.
God's vastly more creative than I'll ever be, and being able to use kind of whatever means he wants. Are there those examples of like secular songs that God has used to get your attention or just impact your life or bless you?
Oh yeah. A lot of times, man, there's a lot of musicians out there that are, aren't necessarily like Christian, but the music has got me through some times, some tough times that just even having, I love folk music. Give me a sad folk song any day. I could be in the best mood, I'll listen to a folk song, and I'll still be in a good mood because I love it. Passenger is one of those for me. I think Michael Persbrandt is how you say his last name. Is his real name, but he goes by Passenger. It's a performing artist, singer-songwriter, and he's amazing. I mean, his music really carried me through some seasons of depression. I one thing I deal with is depression and anxiety. I have for most of my adult life. Honestly, like his music has got me through a lot of that. I mean, I really believe it's a gift. And it's it's not Christian music, but it's beautiful music. And he just kind of writes kind of a bit like David. I mean, just puts his whole heart on his sleeve, and it's really got me through some times of depression and worry and anxiety and all those rocky seasons of life. Music plays a large part in that. And yeah, it's good to have like the Christian music that can give you hope. And even there are
Right.
some that are more lamenting style, and crying out to God, and that's great and that's wonderful. But sometimes I just need something sad to listen to,
Yeah.
and some of his stuff is just like that. But then he has these really beautiful songs too that are just about, the love of his life, and that just, I'm like, man, that's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And you can really it takes you to a different place, and that alone can sometimes change your mindset or pull you out of a funk. It's like, you have a bad day, listen to a sad song,
Right.
and it helps. It really does. I find, at least, or sometimes listen to something peppy to pull you out of that funk.
I mean, it reminds me of like the movie Inside Out, where it's like, yeah, sometimes you just need to feel the emotion you're experiencing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how many times do people say, yeah, I just needed a good cry?
Yeah, 100. Seriously, dude.
It's like, just
Yeah,
experience
it's
that
very
emotion
Yeah.
for that moment.
Mm-hmm. 3.5
And then-
minutes of a song, and there you go. Or, if you're crazy, 45-minute listen to a whole album start to finish. you have that time.
Great option for a road trip.
Yes, 100%. If you're road tripping though, you got to do it right, man. You gotta get the playlist all loaded up.
That's true.
If you don't have the Proclaimers 5,000 miles on there, 500 miles, whatever it is, you're not doing it right, dude. All the road trip, Life is a Highway.
Yes. All the classic.
All the road trip, yeah.
bunch
Bunch of Eagles and Queens and
super
Great
nerdy,
song, yeah.
super nerdy admission, but a go-to road trip song of
Throw it out
mine
there.
is "Moving Right Along" from the Muppet movie.
oh, fantastic! Of course, dude.
Kermit and Fozzie.
Yeah,
singing
moving
it.
right along.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah. Oh, the
But there,
Muppets.
you got me to admit my love for the Muppets.
Dude, no shame. Funny you mentioned your love for the Muppets. We just watched with my son Muppets Treasure Island.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Dude, it's my favorite Muppets movie. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's so funny. And even though he doesn't get the gags, like, it's still entertaining enough to him.
Yeah.
But it's so good. It's so good. They do music well, man.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
fun. They're so wholesome.
Yeah.
They really
It's
are.
colorful,
yeah.
upbeat.
Who doesn't love Kermit?
Right.
Like, they're all great.
Another question I had was talking about kind of recognizing things God might be telling us or blessing us with through the stories contained in songs. If someone came up to you and was like, hey, I have a hard time kind of paying attention when I listen to songs, of recognizing if God's trying to speak to me through this or not, are there any recommendations you would give to someone?
Man, you know how, like, if you're going through a really tough time and you're just really desperate and you're like, I'm going to open the Bible, God has something for me, please. And you open it and it's like, wow, this is unrelated. This isn't really, what I'm looking for. I think with that, you can come across that a lot with songs. If you're like, man, I'm how do I know if God's speaking to me through a song? I think you'll know, man, if you listen to the music, if you listen to those lyrics, like, pay attention to what they're saying, developing that ear. It's easy to listen to a song on the radio and, I know these words, I'm going to sing them. But to think about, what do they mean? What are they really saying?
Yeah.
What are they telling? So I think, if you're, is God speaking to me through music or through a song, or, I want that to happen to me. Like, it'll happen. If God wants to speak to you through a song, it's going to happen. Being open and receptive to it is on you, in the same regard of just opening the Bible, hoping for a verse. If you're reading, study your Bible, hopefully you have a couple verses in your back pocket,
Yeah.
that you can go back to. And I mean, heck, I don't always have that, how many of us do, but it's about getting to know God's character more, reading the Bible and, getting to see who he really is and learning more about him. And I think music, in the sense of that, is, it can do the same, it certainly can. But what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Are you looking for, like, direction? Are you looking for a way to, like, relieve grief? Are you looking to celebrate something? And with that, like, there are a lot of worship songs or secular songs out there that have that. But as far as, is God speaking to me through this? I think you'll kind of know if you listen to the lyrics. So just pay attention. I think, and next time you're at church or singing a song on the radio or listening to it, what are the words saying? Pull them up on, like, Google or something, and, like, look at the lyrics instead of listening to them in music, and read them.
Yeah.
Over that, it's going to come across a different way. if you're looking at it that way versus, to a melody, and you might find something.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of what the Psalms are for us. Like
Very much so.
songs
Yeah, no
stripped of
joke.
the music.
Mm-hmm. For real. Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you brought up just the idea of like pay attention.
Mm.
Because I do think that's something that a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, I'm not where I want to be in that regard, where it's maybe a little more easy to pay attention to if God's trying to speak to me, if I'm in the throngs of a Bible study or in the middle of listening to a sermon or the worship time at church. But am I paying attention when I have classic rock on driving to work?
Sure.
Am I paying attention when I'm out on a walk? I think there are a lot of other areas we could pay attention to.
It's like that, the comprehension part of it too. It's like, yeah, you can listen to it, but are you comprehending? Same with, reading and comprehension, that goes hand in hand. Like, you can read a book and you can get the gist of the story, but are you really soaking it in? Are you comprehending what they're trying to communicate?
Yeah. Well, that's a great link there in my mind, where you learn reading comprehension as a kid over the course of years.
Yeah.
And then like even more so if you continue like an English degree or taking English courses into college or even beyond, like it's something that you don't just do X, Y, and Z and then boom, I have reading comprehension. It's something that you have to work at. So maybe paying attention to God's the same way. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if music is inherently spiritual in the sense. It's like a weird thought, something that I haven't fully like digested or unpacked in my own mind, but like we're both fans of Tolkien and his work and like The Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth.
We are two very nerdy men.
Yes.
100%.
Not ashamed to say
No, absolutely not.
But
Proud
like,
of it.
Like you brought up in a previous conversation that Tolkien included lots of songs in his work. And I was even thinking back to like before we started recording, we were talking about our experiences reading the Silmarillion, which is like Tolkien's book. The first part of it deals with the creation of Middle Earth and how the god of that universe created, and he sung the world into being. Yeah. And it's just like, I wonder why Tolkien chose that. Yeah. If there is that just understanding that music shows up in the Bible all the time. Oh, yeah. We've talked a lot about the Psalms, but I'm a huge, The Prince of Egypt, the animated movie about Moses. So good. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And that connects with me because it's like, they, like in the Bible, it talks about when they cross the Red Sea, they start just like singing and celebrating. Yeah. And I think the life to come is going to have a lot of song. I think so. You talk about how many stories in the Bible have to do, with angels just singing and proclaiming, glory, glory, to God in the highest. And a lot of singing, man. Yeah. That's, you think of it this way, in scripture, it talks about, when God sends his armies forth, the people that are at the very front are the worship leaders. They're the ones that are out there in the front. He sends the worship leaders first ahead of his armies. That is something to be said that too with song and music in that. And I think Tolkien must just have a deep love for music. I don't know much about his life in particular. I would like to. I'm sure there's a number of biographies out there, but he has to have just a deep love of music. Yeah. He's just got every single book's got how many songs in it, Right. And like you said, like in the Silmarillion, the creator sings, like you said, the world into existence. I think for that he's got an understanding in it. He's got to have just a deep love for music. Yeah. At least I would think so. Yeah. I personally have a love kind of pivoting but staying in kind of a somewhat nerdy realm. Like I love musicals quite a bit. Oh yeah. And one thing I was taught pretty early on, kind of like the theory behind a musical is, you have dialogue. It's going on like a play, like a normal play, And then when the emotions hit a certain height, you just have to break into song. And like, I think the director I was working under also talked about, then if the emotions hit that second high, then you break into dance. It was just
awesome.
It's just kind of an interesting intersection between creativity and how you feel. I mean, honestly, man, I keep going back to the Psalms. That's one of the most like up and down emotional roller coasters of a book in the Bible. I'm glad we have the Psalms because it makes me feel like whatever I'm feeling, it's okay to have those emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation on what you do with them. But it makes me very thankful for like a movie like Inside Out, which doesn't talk about Jesus, but I kind of feel like it's spiritual in a sense where God, who created emotions? Who created music? Like, these are innately spiritual topics.
You look at the source, you go, I mean, it makes sense. There's a reason why we have them, in our lives, and why I think people connect with it is it gives you something more. There's something deeper to it. I think there is something spiritual to it.
Well, man, thanks for coming on today. Just kind of diving in. I feel like we're just scratching the surface of some of these more nerdy topics. I'll have to
we'll do another.
I'll
come on another time. We'll get in depth because we were talking about Star Wars, which I would love to talk more about. Dude, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings are like my two big like things I'm the most nerdy about, hands down.
And there's so many like cross topics into like spiritual realms that you can get with most most of these nerdy franchises. Like,
definitely
we'll have to do like some Finding God in nerddom episode.
That would be dude. That's great right there. That's a great idea. If you do that, please invite me back.
All right.
I'll for sure come back and do that.
Well, man, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me and for inviting me, dude. I'm happy to be here and thankful that you invited me. So thank you, man.
Yeah. And is there anywhere people can find you, follow you on the social medias or anything?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me if you're interested in checking out some of my music, I've got music out there. You can just look for my name. That's Seth Bloom. Spotify, Apple Music. A lot of what I have out there is just kind of singer-songwritery acoustic stuff. But
it's good stuff.
Hey, thank you. From your mouth. But it's fun, man. I talked a little bit about earlier. I'd mentioned, I have a little recording studio in my basement that I'm kind of putting together, and so it's all done by myself, and it's something that trying to teach myself that it's fun, and I just say it's something I really love doing, and so I love putting out music. I don't play live as much as I'd like to. But whenever I get the chance, I love to go mess around and put out some music. So I always got something new coming out. So check it out.
Awesome.
Anyone listening, yeah. That's my little plug.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you again.
You got it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today. You can support the show by going to our Patreon page at patreon.com/story516. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. We look forward to seeing you next time.